Hello my friends, this is Lindy. Welcome to Friday Reads on my channel, Magpie Reads. I finished 8 books since my last recent reads video, and 4 of them are by Indigenous authors. 2 of them actually were recommended by Kim of Native Lady Book Warrior, and she is the wonderful person who has organized this month's readathon, Skodan, books by Indigenous authors. So I will link her channel down below. And the first book I'm going to tell you about, I just finished listening to this morning. It is by Jody Wilson-Raybould, who was a former cabinet minister in Canada. She was the Minister of Justice and also Attorney General, and she wrote a book about her experience in Canadian politics called An Indian in the Cabinet, which I recommend. So this audiobook is called True Reconciliation: How to Be a Force for Change. She says she wrote it because so many people in Canada have asked her what they can do to be a part of reconciliation. So it's broken into 3 sections: learn, understand, and act. She reads it herself, with some sections read by 2 other narrators, Roshan Danes and Jane Philpott. There is a lot of quoting from other documents, and I'm glad that she had other people help her out with this, because when she's telling the story plus reading from other documents, sometimes it's not exactly confusing, but a bit same, you know? Anyway, if you've been wondering about this very question, how to be a force for change, this is a great book. Recommend it. Now, on to the 2 that Kim recommended, starting with Jojo Makoons. This is the first in a series, and the title is They Used to Be Best Friend. The author is Don Quigley. Quigley is Ojibwe from North Dakota. And this is an early chapter book with wide leading. You can see in the lines there, and some illustrations. The illustrations are by a New Brunswick artist, Tara Audibert, who is of Wolastoqey and French ancestry, and this is published by Heartdrum. Jojo is such a fun, irrepressible kind of girl. If you know any young readers, it's that stage of reading that's just beyond the early readers, but before the longer chapter books. And it's a really important stage in a child's reading. So having engaging books like this is a godsend for parents and caregivers who are looking for books that will appeal to kids. It's extremely appealing. Jojo has got her hair in these little bear ears, and her name Makoons actually means bear cub. She does talk about her language in here. I am 7 years old and in 1st grade. My name is Jojo Makoons Azur. You want to know another way of saying that in Ojibwe? That's the name of my Native American tribe. Try saying Jojo Makoons Azur Nindezinikas. Big last word, right? You sound out the last word like this. Nindezinikas. Got it? If you can say Tyrannosaurus Rex, you can say Nindiz and Inikas. Her favorite color is brown, after polka dots. Now the other author that Kim recommended is somebody who was born in 1876, a Dakota Sioux woman who went by Zitkala-Ša, which means red bird. And what I found at my public library is this picture book biography. Redbird Sings, the story of Zitkala-Ša, subtitled Native American Author, Musician, and Artist. So as I said, she was born in 1876, the year of the battle at Little Bighorn. In the author's note, it says, "It was a time when American Indian tribal rights were commonly ignored by the United States government." And I kind of raised my eyebrows at that because I get the impression that tribal rights continue to be ignored. Anyway, so what the authors have done, the two authors are Gina Capaldi and Q.L. Pearce, with illustrations by Gina Capaldi, neither of whom are Indigenous, but they've taken Zitkala-Ša's writing and adapted it. And after I finished reading it, I thought, I want to see what her original writing is like. And in this book, it says that Zitkala-Ša's most acclaimed work is called The American Indian Stories. And I discovered that there was an ebook edition of the original 1921 book available through Gale Resources at my library. So that was what I read next. Zitkala-Ša's birth name was Gertrude Simmons, and then she married a man of the surname Bonin. The opening scene in Redbird Sings shows Zitkala-Ša getting her hair cut. And so I'm going to read from Zitkala-Ša's own words in American Indian Stories. It's in the chapter School Days. So she hears from a friend that they are all going to get their hair cut, a friend who understands some English. And she says, "I will not submit. I will struggle first." So she tries hiding. What's caused them to stoop and look under the bed, I do not know. I remember being dragged out, though I resisted by kicking and scratching wildly. In spite of myself, I was carried downstairs and tied fast in a chair. I cried aloud, shaking my head all the while, until I felt the cold blades of the scissors against my neck and heard them gnaw off one of my thick braids. Then I lost my spirit. Since the day I was taken from my mother, I had suffered extreme indignities. People had stared at me. I had been tossed about in the air like a wooden puppet, and now my long hair was shingled like a coward's. In my anguish, I moaned for my mother, but no one came to comfort me. Not a soul reasoned quietly with me as my own mother used to do, for now I was only one of many little animals driven by a herder. In another section, she compares herself and the other children at residential school to being a small forest of Indian timber. Zitkala-Ša was the first Native American writer to receive national acclaim. She was the first Native American violinist to perform before a U.S. president, and the first Native American to write an opera and have it staged. Here are some photos from the picture book biography. On the far left, she's got a violin. That's in 1898. And then on the right, that one is dated 1913, and it says she often dressed in traditional Indian clothes when she addressed Anglo audiences about the plight of her people. Next up, poetry by Matthew James Weigel, who is Dene and Métis. The book is called Whitemud Walking. It's actually a combination of poetry and art and nonfiction prose and archival documents. And here's Frida. It's gotta come say hello. So this author grew up in Edmonton and went to university at the University of Alberta. His family history is quite entwined with Canadian colonial history. Here's an example of the contents. So there's a photo, and the title is Ancestors of Author Determined to be a Good Ancestor. I'd like you to see some of my family. This is Marie, Fabian, and James Balsillie with 4 of their youngest children. When I showed the image to my dad, he got quiet, tears in his eyes, and with his hand held to his face. This photograph is not in the possession of my family, but in the archives of the University of Alberta. I've never seen the photo. Neither has my father or anyone else in my family. I found it online. The image has an item number and subject taxonomy links to family and personal life and Aboriginal peoples. I assume it sits in a box on a shelf. This actually reminds me of the work that Paul Sisakwasis has done with Indigenous archival photos and getting the people pictured therein identified. Here's another poem. List of rules I have broken in the archive. I have gotten, on occasion, too close to the materials I study. I am the materials I study. I have taken photos with an unsupported camera. The motion photos saved a record of the shaking of my hands. I have cried in the archive. This is what Métis script looked like. Métis people, instead of getting reserves, were dealt with individually and were given a piece of paper that entitled them to get 160 acres of land. But in this book, I learned that out of the 1.4 million acres that were negotiated to be allotted for Métis people, only 200,000 acres were actually issued. Weigel's great-great-grandfather was a witness to one, and he signed one of the last treaties negotiated in the Northwest. Here you can see the wording of that treaty and the way that the author has played with it and those last words there. And some of his art is in this book as well. If you liked Nishka by Jordan Abel, then I think Whitemud Walking would also appeal to you. Next up, I have a middle grade graphic novel by a Black Canadian cartoonist, Johnnie Christmas, and the book is called Swim Team. It's very inspiring contemporary realism. The family consists of this girl, I think she's in grade 5, and her dad. And they move from Brooklyn to Florida. It's a story about friendship and teamwork. Bree is this girl's name, and she is afraid of the water and ends up being on a swim team. A very cool thing in this book is how the author makes the connection between the myth that Black people can't swim and the history of racial prejudice in the USA. And I also love that there are bodies of different shades and sizes in the pools. There's this great board book by Aaron Becker called My Favorite Color. This is something to delight both toddlers and their caregivers. I think I'll insert a little video so you can see. It's got these sturdy board pages. There's a transparent colored film and die-cut squares. Such a celebration of all the different shades, all the different colors. So much more sophisticated than just yellow and blue and red. If you're looking for a gift for a little one, keep that one in mind. Last up, my favorite book of the week is Our Colors by Gengoroh Tagame, who is a gay Japanese cartoonist. You might be familiar with his duology, My Brother's Husband. I like this one even better. The author says he wrote this for himself when he was 15 in 1979. The story is about a boy in high school who knows he's gay but is afraid to tell anybody. And he meets an openly gay man who runs a cafe. So things change for him then. There are a lot of homoerotic scenes in this book, nothing graphic. So it is a manga aimed at adults. I'm saying manga, it's written in the Japanese format where you start at the back and read and in this direction. It's certainly suitable for older teens. I love the way that he uses patterned backgrounds in some of these panels to show inner feelings, and his faces on his characters are really expressive as well. And also, do you know what this animal is on Sora's shirt? I am trying to figure this out, so your guesses or your information, maybe you know what it is, please let me know in the description box below. Anything you want to tell me, there's that description box down below. I always love to interact with you, so give me a hello and I will say hello back, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.